everywhere. GBS.
A very good evening. You're joining us live from our GBS TV Africa studios. This is The Insight, where we dissect and analyze issues of national and global importance. I am Tracy Ochieng, standing in for Eugene Ochieng Kwach, and tonight we will be traversing across the hot topics of this week on impeachment and devolution, plus the President's State of the Nation address. Now, we'll be talking about it all because this comes in 14 months later after he took the reins of power. Now, joining me for this conversation is George Ngaira, a political analyst and also a former presidential aspirant, Esther Waringa. Our SMS lines are open, so do send in your comments and your questions to 21144 and engage with us across all our social media platforms at GBS TV Africa. But before we get into this conversation, I'd like to set the precedent by saying that the object of devolution was to decentralize power and bring back this power to the Mwananchi to decide on the affairs of local development in their respective counties. Now, the 2010 Constitution superseded the 1963 Constitution that centralized power and authority under the presidency. So now we have 47 excellencies in their own right, and the people expect that this decentralization will once and for all cure the ulcer of societal inequalities, resource disparities, economic gaps, and political concentration. Thank you so much, Ngaira, for joining us. Esther Waringa, I'll allow you to do your introductions before we get into the hot topics of the week.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Ambassador Esther Waringa, currently the President of Public Service Governance, and of course a former presidential candidate, Kenya General Elections 2022, and of course a presidential aspirant 2027. The power of a woman is the transformative energy the country is waiting for. Together we can.
Asante sana, Esther. Yes?
Thank you very much for having me. My name is George Ngaira. I'm a political analyst, I'm an economist, and also a businessman. Thank you for having me here today.
Now, before we get into the issues of impeachment, because I want to start with that was the hot topic during the week, I want to ask you, what's your presidential scorecard now that we witnessed the State of the Nation address that was yesterday, and Kenyans are talking? But besides this, we've had previous scorecards, but today on The Insight, George Ngaira, what is your presidential scorecard 14 months later?
Very quickly, first of all, I need to give kudos to the president in how he took off in terms of the demeanor and the posture that he gave to the public on the very first day he became a president. And you know, there are some decisions which the former president was taking too long to sort of go through them, and he was able to get rid of them very quickly. So the president has shown the intention to want to work and work very hard. But how that translates to the life of an average Kenyan is the debate that we're going to have. So the president had given 50%.
And you said a good thing. You said intention, because that was one of the things he mentioned in his speech. It is my intention, but we'll get to that. How about you, Esther?
Thank you, beautiful. Listening to the president's speech, I was trying to get to the bottom of it and try to get some key performance indicators that would lead to a result-based government during his last year, 1 year in his administration. But looking and listening to the president's delivery yesterday, I think I'll give him 25%. Wow. Because what we need is tangible results. We don't need too much talk. I think if president gave us just 5 bullets, giving us tangible results on agriculture, this is what we have. On education, this is what we have. On energy, that is killing our economy, this is what we have. Just 5 major developmental interventions with results. That's all we required.
Now, Ngaira, you gave 50%, Waringa gave 25%. Yes. Let's get into it.
You say 50% because as a leader, when you're given an opportunity to serve the people, there is what happens when you're campaigning, and then there's the reality that you find when you now come into office. President Vladimir Putin of Russia, when he first came into power, Remember, he was not a politician before that. He was a civil servant. He was working with the KGB. And so when he was campaigning now to become president the first time, he had all these grand ideas on what he thought Russia could be. But when he became president, he said, they asked him a couple of years later that, Mr. President, there's a bunch of things that you said that you're going to do. But then clearly you haven't been able to achieve them. What is it that has stopped you? Then he gave an analogy of what happens when you get into government. That at the time when you're running for office, you're thinking about how you will make your decisions independently. But then when you become president, you come into something, an animal called the presidency. He said that when you get into state office now, there are people who come in with suits and briefcases that begin to tell you, this is how government works. So then you realize that then you might not go at the same pace as to how you would wish as a politician. You understand? So for President William Ruto, having done a year into office, and I'm speaking for somebody who was not very much is a favorite to me, but he's in office, he's done a year. He has shown his demeanor as somebody that really wants to get things done quickly. But then now, how then that translates, as I mentioned before, into food security, how that translates into health security, how does that translate into housing, education, and all these factors that actually affect an average man is what is the subject of debate. And the president has, he hasn't quite done well on that.
He hasn't quite done well. I'm going to pick on that because I'm coming back to you, Gaira.
Yes.
Waringa, you gave 25%.
Yes.
As Lushing half, you just completely obliterated it. Why? Tell us why.
The reason why I would give the president 25% is that we expected His Excellency during his 1 year term, or the 1 year term in his administration, the president, as smart as he is, he could have tried as much as possible to identify at least 5 key economic drivers. And these economic drivers would highly be based on agriculture, energy, and of course, health, education, and industrialization. Those 5 key economic drivers, and especially the 3, the agriculture, the energy, and industrialization. If the president was able to give us that in agriculture, this is what we have realized for the last 1 year, apart from what he said, that now we have 18 million bags more in our national cereals and produce board stores. Away from that, what we have injected in terms of fertilizer, what other economic driver or what other interventions has he undertaken, considering that agriculture is wide, considering that for us to get productivity as a country, we cannot run away from the fact that we have to prioritize government interventions. But when you touch on each and every sector, you lose it completely. So did you remember President Uhuru when he talked about the government flagship projects and economic stimulus projects? This is what we need. We need the president now to come and tell us, what are my key 3 economic stimulus projects? Because when you tell us about housing, what are we talking about when the economy is collapsing? Are you telling us that we are taking several billions to a building that is not producing? Why not take the 10 billion to agriculture that will be producing, that will employ more than housing?
Now, Gaira.
And with that now, I think Gaira is burning up.
Yes.
It's burning up now. Yes, with agriculture and productivity. And what the CS Courier was trying now to launch recently in counties, industrial parks. If the president is able to focus on key economic drivers that will drive this nation forward, such that UNGA will reduce not to 145, but to 70. It is very possible. Then we can listen to him. So what are we expecting? 3 key economic drivers. Next time the president addresses the nation, let him give us results in agriculture, results in industrialization, results in energy, and results in mining. For example, mining is only giving us, as a country, as a GDP, only 1%. It has potential to give us 10% of the country's GDP. The president never talked anything about mining, yet it is a key economic driver in the Republic of Kenya.
Now,
So
Ngaira,
we are a little bit
I
lost.
want you to, you have been smiling the
Yeah.
whole time. I've also been
I
smiling.
like the passion. The passion is just quite something else.
Take it away, Ngaira.
But listen, so I wanted to say this. You see,
Yes.
as human beings, the very first thing that the basic things that we need as human beings. One, you want to eat. Then you want to have a very comfortable place to sleep.
Yes.
Then be healthy before you even talk about education.
Yes.
You understand? So those are the basic human needs. And the president, when he came into power, and sometimes I don't know. That's why one day I must also run for office, like so that I begin to understand what happens when you actually get into power. Because when you're out here and you're trying these manifestos, they had this big, wonderful plan. We are calling the plan.
You said
that's
the reality on the ground is different.
It's completely different because when you come in as an officer, you come in as an elected leader, there's a bunch of people that always hoover around politicians and people that invested in your campaign and etc. But you see, the president ought to have narrowed down to the basics, which is why actually my smiling is because I like the passion. This is what the Kenyans, an average Kenyan on the street, this is what he thinks like. You know, the cost of food is really high. The cost of housing has really gone up. The cost of our medicine and our health facility, the situation in our health facilities is terrible. Fees now, you saw what is happening in the high school, the capitation has gone out.
And now Kipsang is saying it's actually hard for the government to roll out free education.
It's terrible. And you know, as somebody, maybe if you have a small family or you're married and you have kids and all these people that are depending on you, if you can't, it's quite demeaning when you can't provide shelter and take care of the health of it. So the country is not in a good state. The country is in a terrible position. The president hasn't done quite well on that, but I hope probably because it's the first year he can be able to improve that in the second year.
You know, this State of the Nation address is also coming at a time when he has publicly admitted that, you know, I gave promises and they're taking time. I also don't understand why they're taking time. How can Kenyans now regain that trust? When you're doing the introductions of the show, we said there's been scorecards, there have been surveys. 79% of Kenyans think the country is heading in the wrong direction. And now the president is coming up and saying, you know what, actually today I've learned a new thing. I didn't know promises take time. What is your take? How did you feel in that moment when the head of state, who people have put their trust in, believed in this manifesto, coming up and saying, you know, actually, it's so different?
You know, when I looked at the president yesterday as he was speaking, you know, probably we have the most articulate president ever in the history of our life, in the history of our country.
Yes.
Yeah.
He has that ability to appear to be convincing the people, but as she's just mentioned now, it has to translate into numbers. You have to show that when you say that you've done these miracles in agriculture, it has to reflect on our tables.
Yeah.
When every time, and one of the problems that I have with this government sometimes is that they keep, every time Kenyans raise the issues of food, for example, they keep talking of fertilizer. Fertilizer is only 7% of the production cost because then you have to do the seedlings, you have to do the farm machinery, you have to do the labor, and then you have to do storage and then transport into markets.
Yeah.
So when you look at, say, the cost of fuel alone, it negates the whole thing of fertilizer because then how do you even access to the market without paying for transport?
Yeah.
You understand? So it's terrible. There's really not much you can say about that. And then they've only done large-scale production when it comes into maize, but we don't just eat maize every day.
Yeah.
There's other things that we do. So the president hasn't quite, I wish when he came in and came up with this hustler fund, one of the biggest and most important human programs that anybody can run is job creation.
Yeah.
The 50 billion, I always tell them, and I have a bunch of friends that are in government. I talk to Itumbi all the time. I tell him, my brother, you're in status. Why can't you tell this president of yours that this is some of, particularly the young people, because he ran a very young and youthful campaign, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
If you take 100 million shillings to a constituency, you can do a small factory there, isn't it? 290 constituencies is just about 29 billion.
Yeah.
In this 1 year, he would have built 290 factories and created almost 2.9 million jobs just by doing
But
that.
he's saying housing is going to be the key driver of economic growth.
The scandal
And-
that is, listen, the scandal that is this housing project, you know what they're doing, especially here in Nairobi? An acre of land here in Nairobi is a minimum of 100 million shillings. So people have now descended on what is known as public land, starting from Mudhuru, 56 acres of land. That is about 5.6 billion worth of land. Then you go into Makadara and Kaloleni and Uhuru, all those things. It's almost 1,000 acres. That is almost 100 billion shillings worth of land. And now the president, in pretense of wanting to create this affordable housing, is dishing out land. You know what they're saying is that you must appear, you just need to come and propose that you can do houses, and then we give you prime land, but nobody's valuing the value of the land vis-a-vis the investment that you're putting in. You understand? So it's a huge scandal. Probably this is the scandal that will either make or bring down this government, is what is happening in affordable. There's nothing like affordable housing. And one last thing, my sister, the President Uhuru Kenyatta tried to do an affordable housing program. You cannot have an affordable housing program without the government being the builder and the leaser of those properties. What happened in Ngara, for example, they say they came to property, they built up some affordable housing units there for, I think, the police or something like that, for some civil servants. You know what happened? And the PS for housing, Charles Hinga, admitted publicly, he said the problem that we had there is that indeed we had a program and then we were able to give out some loans to some people, you know, cheap mortgages for these people. But the trouble is that the moment you hand over property to a third party, it becomes a private property. So the property were being leased for a mortgage payment of about 19,000 shillings. But the people who actually acquired the houses didn't live in them. They've actually rented them for 55,000 shillings. Wow. So they're making a cool 39,000 shillings. So it doesn't make sense. The original plan was that the Kenya National Housing Corporation was supposed to build those homes and then the lease or sell at an affordable price. But that's not what this president is doing. What they're doing is a vending program for property developers. And in the end, it's going to cost Kenyans billions of shillings. That would be very unfortunate.
Now, I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Yes, I do have a lot to say about especially what the president talked about. That, we didn't know that things can take wrong. I thought he is a president. I thought he is a presidential material. Because when you are a presidential material, you know the law of planning and prioritization. Planning and prioritization tells us that you have to have immediate and impactful plans. You ought to have midterm plans and long-term plans. Immediately the president came into leadership or into power, he should have sat down with his economic advisors and then agree what are the most immediate interventions that we are to undertake as a government so that immediately we boost the economy. What are the intermediate interventions? What are the long-term? Issues of housing should have come like third or fourth year in the president's lane.
True.
Right now, we should be seeing every family's potential to eat, every child in school. We should be seeing our GDP going up because of the immediate first-term interventions that the president undertakes. But because of confusion, we see things that he's supposed to do in 2026, 2025, he's doing them right now. Who is this that is advising the president? Sirais Unite. Maybe you call me, I sit down with you. Because I think we have missed it. And as a strategist, I'm a strategist by profession. We have lost the reason why the president is losing. Even in his speech yesterday, he should have told us, nation, Republic of Kenya, these are 1, 2, 3 things that we have achieved. Not we are in the process. 1 year is a very long time to still talk about the processes.
Is it?
Because right now, the president is still talking about the processes. He should be telling us about processes towards realizing the 2025 economic agendas. But for now, what we needed to hear is the results, what he has achieved. What Wanjiko right now is celebrating. If Wanjiko is celebrating 70 shillings packet of unga, tungekuwa tunapigia rais mako. Sorry, we should be celebrating His Excellency the President. But right now, unga is still high. You tell us Gorogoro is 70. Gorogoro right now, analysis this morning is 120. So where did the president get these figures? So unfortunately, I think His Excellency, he's a brilliant person, but he needs really to know who is around him, and probably he need to weigh information before he releases it to the public so that he can retain and maintain his presidential focus.
Now I want to move on swiftly, but there's an I want to say it's an allegation, Ngaira. You say the president is dishing out land. Now, is this your personal opinion or is this factual?
It's not an allegation. The president has a program, an affordable housing program. They've said government will be giving out land and for people who want to develop the property so that they can actually advance those properties to Kenyans at a cheaper cost. It's a public program, it's not a secret.
Okay.
That's what they are saying. And then they've narrowed down to actually the specific regions, particularly in Nairobi. They're doing it in the counties, but in the counties, land is not a big deal. Over there, land is not, an acre of land is not even $1,000,000 shillings in some of our rural counties. But in Nairobi is where the big show is, because here we have those old government estates that are sitting on prime land. The whole of Jogoo Road, right from Mudhurwa all the way to Donholm, is public land.
Yeah.
And there are people currently just hovering around the president in the name of private developers because they're going for the land. And maybe to just add what you're saying, you know, I have in the last 15 years I've been around the corridors and got to understand how sometimes things work. You see, the president is interested. You said why the president is interested in housing. He's a property developer himself.
Yeah.
So that is his personal business. And so what happens is that in these such cases, when you have such programs, the president might not necessarily get money, but remember the contractors who are being given prime land in the middle of the town, getting even a plot in the middle of the town. When we had this, the unfortunate situation, we had the old Nakumatt downtown, the one that burned in town. That property, when they were selling it, because I used to be in a law firm before, and that property was sold for 326 million, just 50 by 100 or something. It's a very small space. You can imagine what it means now, the president giving you 56 acres of the road for free. You're not paying for it. It's prime land is because they're in business. He wants to do business. He's a developer himself. So the president is struggling between serving the nation and serving himself. Wow. Kenyans, it's very unfortunate. It's
That's very important.
It's very unfortunate for Kenyans now, because today, a Kenyan today is the cost of being able to feed themselves has gone higher than it was last year. The cost of housing ourselves has gone higher than it was last year. Same with the education, same with transport and fuel and all this stuff. So it's very unfortunate, but I hope the president can read the mood and be able to work quickly.
And I wish you had more time to talk even about energy when the CS comes out and says we might actually hit the 300 mark. We're having the PS for education. Under Article 53, education, every child should access free basic primary education. But now they're saying now we can't deliver on that. I just want to give you 1 minute each to talk about the cost, because fuel is an economic drive of this country. That's again said. So that's something that he didn't quite touch on. He says we have issues, there have been challenges, but should that have been a major aspect of his State of the Nation address? You know,
for you to have a strong economy and be a developed society, you need to have a strong manufacturing sector so that you're able to create jobs. Now, for you to create jobs, then you need to industrialize. And there's no industrialization without fuel and energy.
Yes.
So when the cost of power goes up, that's why you have all these companies like Cadbury and Yana Tires, they've all left the country. Because if you're producing at a cost, say, you're producing at 28 shillings per kilowatt, the cost of power. And in South Africa, they're doing it at 6 shillings. It's just very obvious that you're going to leave and go to a spare space. So I think the president needs to go back to basics and be able to look at what is happening in the field energy, because a lot of people do not know. The reason why good cost of power is because when you look at the landing cost at the port of Mombasa, vis-a-vis what the retail cost is at the pump in all the 3 countries, is because the number of taxes that are tied to our fuel levy, we have over 9 taxes there. So that's what's making the fuel very cost. And the president also, as a businessman, is inside that business.
Warenga, in 1 minute.
Yeah, I thought
I
thought this should have taken the president's first state address statement, the energy, because this is actually a major economic driver. Because as we talk right now, the investors are pouring out of this country because of high cost of manufacturing. As we talk right now, the cost of production is too high that even those who are left behind, if you go to the supermarket, everything is skyrocketing. Why? Because of energy. So for president not even taking time to address the cost of energy, it's very unfortunate. And I must say, as a former presidential candidate, that as much as we are hearing that we have been affected by the global crisis, the countries that are around us, the Uganda, the Tanzania, are giving very, very powerful statements on how they are reducing the cost of fuel because of the reduction of the global fuel changes. What about Kenya? We are talking about that globally, the cost of fuel is high. Are we living in our own world? I don't think so. Therefore, we need truth from the government. We need very clear information when it comes to policy on energy. Tafadhali, His Excellency the President, together with the Cabinet Minister for Energy, must tell Kenyans what is really happening. And remember, I have just talked about economic drivers. If energy is not addressed appropriately in this country, the cost of living will continue skyrocketing. So, and please, before I exit, we have 9 levies in petroleum and petroleum products.
On our fuel
We are exactly. Why isn't the president? He's saying that his hands are tied and he cannot be able to do anything. What about reducing on some of these levies? He has the power. He can be able to exercise his executive power, or according to the legislative systems that are set, to be able to reduce on the 9 levies. And I can't exit without saying the 16% VAT on fuel. Why don't we reduce to 8%? It is doable. So the president, you have options. I don't know why you don't want to do it. Or maybe we take over government.
On that note, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with the topic of impeachment and devolution.
Everywhere. GBS.
Kenyans, my fellow Kenyans, my fellow youths, jikazeni bana. Tujikaze, lakini bana usiingie crime pale. Hata kama mafuta itagonga 400. Wewe Mungu wako.
God's there.
Na economy haiwezi kukuchapa. Wewe jikaze, enda kwa magoti, jitume na utatumika.
I don't see kuchapa aknieta mtoto. Like I don't see like ikiwa that like mbona uchape mtoto? You know, I feel like aufai kuchapa mtoto.
Yeah, but Africa, me I favor, cause me Africa, I'm an African. And I am a dark child, but I'm a light to my society and my community.
Ukifika miaka 18.
Toka.
Get out. Shift. Haraka, toka.
Ukusi kwako.
You know?
By the way, a good parent will always be very protective. Pia wewe usinikao umekula miti mingi sana. Na tukiwa hapo ni mpaka tutambue
Everywhere. GBS.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Insight. Do remember to send in your comments and your questions to 21144 and engage with us across all our social media platforms at GBS TV Africa. Now, Ngaira and Waringa, I must say that is purely phenomenal. Whatever we had talking about State of the Nation address, and now we're going to talk about impeachment and devolution, the other excellencies. And this particular excellency has had issues majorly centering around her husband, Mr. Murega Baishu, that is none other than Bishop Kawera Mwangaza. Now, this governor was before Senate this week, and she argued that the impeachment was a political vendetta fueled by the fact that she's politically independent. Let's talk about that first, because she was elected on an independent ticket. So does it mean that governors who do not align politically do not have the shelf life of surviving in government?
First of all, I want to congratulate Kenyans for us continuously embracing women in leadership, because we've made a very huge transition from a time when you would never imagine that a woman could be a member of parliament. Then we ended up having the likes of Phoebe CEO and Charity Ngilu and all these ladies that came up before that. I really am a big fan of Martha Karua as well. 20 years unbeaten in Kirinyaga, and I tend to think that if she had run for governor in 2013, she would have been the governor of Kirinyaga. So those are trendsetters that have shown that they reign at a time when it was incredibly difficult to even imagine that a lady could actually run for office, and we're able to set that trend. So when we had the new constitution and we were to create to now have governors, that those governors that went in for the first time, the late great Joyce Laboso, a good friend of mine, I really loved her campaign. She wasn't generally a very nice lady that just got into power because people liked her. And then unfortunately she didn't last for long. And then we had 3 governors at that particular time. She had a husband as well. And she had just like Charity Ngilu, the whole, not for Charity Ngilu, but for her she had a husband, but the husband didn't quite get a lot of this kind of attention. But then when in 2017 came and we had 7 new governors, now women governors, a big congratulations for the people in Kwale, the very first female Muslim governor in the country, something that is to be applauded. And then these governors now, they get an opportunity to work. It creates, it shows that we're going progress. I always say, this is what was keeping my mind, it's very unfortunate that where I come from Western Kenya, we did not even have one single elected woman MP. Wow. Western is the shame of this country when it comes to election of
You will be held accountable for
You'll be
that.
accountable for that. It's the shame of this country because it's the only region that doesn't have a woman governor. You know, if the coast, you know, the Muslim culture, the way it was against women, for them to elect a woman and be able to embrace that women too can lead. My mother, she's a politician too. We are all politicians in our family, but I'm really happy. I always support her on that. So Kawira Mwangaza comes in with a very unique situation because Meru is a very politically divided county. You have the Gembe North, and then you have the Imentis, and then you have the Tiganias on the lower end. And sometimes, you know, the politics of that region could go separate ways. And that's why, because you had Mithika Linturi running in, coming from Central Meru, and then former Kiraitu was from Imenti. And then you have this lady, she's an outlier, and was able to beat them and come into office. They didn't believe that would happen. Now that she's in and has a very youthful husband, people have refused to accept that, you know, she's a leader because they always try to pick on her. The situation in Meru is political. The lady has just come in. You know, it's just about a year. He's trying to find his way, you know, as a leader and trying to lead the county. It's very unfortunate that the MCAs of Meru County have decided to play with the lives of their people.
And as I was dissecting her story, just 2 months into her governorship, there was already an impeachment motion against her. What's your take on this, Waringa?
She must be then a unique lady. Actually, I start by saluting her and I congratulate Governor Kawira. I must say, to the Republic of Kenya, this is now the roadmap to realization of 2/3 gender rule, when women come up strong to defend their cause. Because at times, we always take women probably that they are incapacitated to do what men can do. But I think Governor Kawira has proved to the nation that, look, what men can do, women can do it better. That she was able to present herself at the front of the Senate and defend her cause. I also want to salute the senators who came behind her and voted for her continuity as the governor of Meru. I must say that this is political because being an independent candidate or an independent governor, voted on independent vote, this is constitutional. That means whoever governor is elected on a party ticket is respected equally to a governor. I mean, they enjoy the same equity, the same level, the same standard, the same everything. A governor who is elected on an independent candidate ticket must be respected equally as a governor who has come from a political party, whether Azimio or whether UNA. So I hail the governor, and to the people of Meru, tafadhali, it's time to work. Because whatever Governor Kawira was going through is political. It's not that she has incapacity to deliver. It's not that she has failed the people of Meru in any way. But because there was some political,
Hula baloo.
Yes, here and there, they decided, okay, let's do a vote of no confidence or vote her out of Meru. But now, what were Meru? They have now realized what it means to stop politicizing the governance and the development agenda of Meru. Going forward, that Meru people, you must come together. MCAs in Meru, tafadhali, a time comes when the people you are serving are important than your political agendas.
We'll get
your
to
political division. Therefore, come together, now support the system, support the administration of Governor Kawira, because when you realize harmony, then even development will be realized in Meru. But as long as fighting continues, political fighting, around me to say that, then development will be curtailed, and who will be suffering? Wanjiku in Meru.
We'll get back to that political agenda because as we were talking earlier, we talked about the political culture.
Yes.
And now even in this devolved system, we're seeing something quite so familiar. But anyway, let's play this. Let's take a listen to this video.
Members of Parliament, our dear Deputy Senator of this House, the MCAs, Deputy Speaker, if I've wronged any one of you, forgive me. Honorable Speaker, I was elected as an independent governor. I know I need MCS. I've tried my best, and I shall still continue trying my best.
Now, honorable senators, Section 33(7) of the County Governments Act provide as follows. If a majority of all members of the Senate vote to uphold any impeachment charge, the governor shall cease to hold office. Honorable senators, the result of the division indicate that the Senate has not upheld any of the impeachment charges. Pursuant to Article 181 of the Constitution, Section 33(8) of the County Governments Act, and Standing Order 87 of the Senate Standing Orders, the Senate has failed to remove from office by impeachment Honorable.
Now, what a momentous occasion for Senate to witness. And I want to ask you, did you expect for this proceeding to end up like that?
You know, from the very beginning, it appeared like she had no chance because of the political mechanization that was happening in the Senate. Remember the president's party, which is UDA, most of his MCAs belong to that particular party, were actually hell-bent on seeing this lady leave office. And so when you look at the numbers in the Senate, which were originally, they were 50-50, you know, 23-24 between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. But you know, when the president came in and those who crossed over into other section, remember the senator from Mandera, they were elected on Azimio, but then they moved in, their voting with the president. So on paper, she had no chance of surviving. But then again, you know, this is politics, and they understand that it's politics, so there's internal lobbying. I think he was able to work out. I saw on paper today, they were talking of how the process, there was a big call. A very big call that came in.
Really?
An extremely big call.
So it's nothing to do with Ongoya's...
No, not just the lawyers did their thing. We all agree that the Constitution has set the threshold of what constitutes an impeachment for a governor, and there are limits to what a governor. And I hope as days go by, we're going to even have a legislation where that we set up a threshold of how soon should a governor be impeached.
Absolutely.
So that then you are allowed to, you see, like members of parliament, there is a clause that allows Kenyans to actually recall a member of parliament. But then they say at least he should serve 2 years. So there's a limit so that you allow somebody to work. That is a different debate. But I'm just saying, on paper, she didn't have a chance. But then now the politics around it then might have worked out for her.
Incredible. Wow. Waringa, as a woman, I want to ask, I'm coming to you as a woman. How did this feel to you, and now that you're also a woman in leadership?
I think, one, I was celebrating because I knew she has made us women feel that yes, we can. Probably we felt at the beginning of the session that because she's a woman, she will go through what other women go through, and probably she will fail. But as the course advanced, she continued proving it, that she can. And then at the end of it, the humility bit of it. True. Humble girl, that whoever I have wronged, I request to be forgiven. That is maturity. That is the women. And actually, that now opens up a totally new chapter for women in Kenya. So women, tafadhali in the Republic of Kenya, you can. Governor Kawira was a very, very good example that we can, that if we get out of our comfort zones, that women, if we come out in truth, in truthfulness, if we come out in confidence, in determination, that yes, we can. And that's why I'm saying, that even for presidency, if we are to realize the two-third gender rule in the Republic of Kenya, we must run away from this notion that women are the weaker gender. We must run away from this notion that no, women cannot. We must run away from the notion that we don't have, that we cannot have a woman actually president. As we talk, I'm a presidential candidate 2027. Elections are just coming because what I can see in the country, we are headed there. So I look forward to forming the first woman-led government.
Yeah.
And I believe Governor Kawera is very much with me. So I hail the lady. And going forward, actually, whatever she did yesterday, give her a very solid and a powerful platform for her now to deliver as the governor of Meru. May I say this? That even now, she's highly respected, both at Meru level, at the national level, and even international level. So women, come up strongly. I had another lady saying this morning, please, Wamama, can you position yourself in all jurisdictions so that now, come general elections 2027, we want to automate. We would like to automate the power of a woman, especially realization of two-third gender rule. Remember that this is something that have been deliberated in Parliament for 3 times. During President Uhuru, I think it was discussed by Parliament 2-3 times, and it failed. And even now, it has not yet succeeded, the two-third gender rule. So what do? We come out in big numbers and prove that women, yes, we can. Of course, led by the 6th President,
I see Waringa is out here just trying to start her campaigns. Waringa, I have to whip you. So we're looking at this animal called impeachment and how it is curtailing devolution. And I'm looking at these 11 attempts, and Senate has only been able to successfully substantiate 4. And we're looking at the essence, at the core of this, the common denominators is nepotism, illegal appointments, and usurpation of roles. So is it an issue of taming MCAs, or is this a conflict of interest? What causes the impeachments in this country?
First of all, the reason why we have impeachment provisions in our constitution and any constitutions in the world is because we know human beings are not angels. So we are, as human beings, we are all of us about to fail at some point. So it's the reason why even the world over, including America, you know, we have an impeachment provision. So that is agreed. There's nothing wrong with an impeachment process. It's a legal process for that matter. But you see, the thing is, they went further ahead to actually give the terms under which you can impeach somebody, including the president. And they were able to set a threshold of this is what constitutes president, so that this is what constitutes a formal, a serious, valid impeachment, so that we do not have busybodies that are bitter and election losers that can come in to just come in to take you out. You understand? So having said that, is that now when you look specifically on the issue of governance, is that when we came in 2013, I'll give an example for Bungoma County. We had a big candidate in the name of Dr. Mkwisa Kitui, a former trade minister, a very popular guy. And then we had Senator Wetangula as well, a big name in the politics of Bungoma. And then the former minister, long-time cabinet minister, and a Kibaki henchman called Mskari Kombo. All of them went for the Senate seat because they hadn't quite appreciated who a governor was going to be. Now, Kenyans have figured out the easiest way to become a billionaire is to be a governor, because you can imagine my home county of Kakamega, which is the second largest county after Nairobi, we get 17 billion a year. And then there's some, 2 billion that comes in from our own source of income, so it's 20 billion shillings. It's a huge budget. You understand? So people have come to understand that this is a big seat and that needs that could easily turn your fortunes. And so the back and forth that the governors are going to face even as years go by is going to be enormous. That's why we have all these impeachment attempts that you're talking about. But now it's up to us Kenyans, because we don't elect leaders for showbiz. We elect them because we want them to serve us. And so we have to look at, one, the type of leaders that we elect, and that must start with the leaders that we have at the ground level, which is the MCAs. Remember, the elected leader that has the highest contact with the voters is the MCA.
It's the MCA.
He's the person that actually lives with the people. There was a story that happened in an area called Nzoia, where the MCA now had come in. He didn't quite expect the kind of engagement that his villagers will always be having on him. Every day he went to go out. They tried to escort him, that he decided now he'd be cutting through sugarcane. Kata katibu karibu na shamba to always go to work because of the demands of the and when he was flagged off, he said, I tell you, the pressure of being an MCA is an extremely enormous. So I can understand the pressure. So when these governors come in, the MCAs always understand with the gap that we have in terms of how quick you can impeach a governor is now being used as one of those tools that you can use to impeach a governor. And that is exactly what's happening in Meru because of the politics that is there. They didn't quite expect her. Remember, she beat some very big names. For her to become Remember, Kiraitu Murungi had never lost any election since 1992. 30 years.
Wow.
It was quite an achievement for her.
Wow, beautiful. I must say that impeachment is curtailing devolution. What makes the 2010 Kenyan Constitution beautiful is the power of devolution that is anchored in that constitution. And the day that we established the devolved units, we told ourselves that what we are doing, we are devolving power. Because from the we are devolving power, we are devolving public service delivery. We are giving also Wanjiko the power also to make decisions, and we are bringing services closer to the people. But how come we are the same people who are going against what we voted in the Constitution 2010, the power of devolution? Because one, we should be able to define what is impeachment. Two, what is the threshold for impeachment? If a particular governor does not meet the threshold of impeachment, why now all these political hurrabaroos around her that she must, and this is actually the second time that is happening to Governor Kawira. They were never satisfied with the first time. Now they came to the second time. And my question is, did she, or what exactly that she did so wrong that could have necessitated the second session of impeachment? I must say, this was a waste of time, actually, for the people of Meru. She should have been thinking of how we can have more sweet potatoes and more domas and more whatever in Meru, other than thinking, like now, yesterday, a whole day at the Senate, almost, if I may call it a whole day, I mean the day before yesterday, the Senate spending all those hours instead of discussing how we can be able to reduce the cost of energy in this country. They are discussing impeachment. Yet she did not actually have the threshold for impeachment. It was all political. I think we are losing it out when we talk about what to prioritize in our developmental interventions, both at the national level and at the county level. I must say this to the governors. Like at the national level, we are imping because of probably some political interest up there. Then, at the county level, governors must deliver because one, their kitty is well taken care of. The governors has money. But what we are seeing in many of the counties is, one, corruption, political games, I don't know what, many things that are retrogressing, or what we may call, they are not giving time and money and resources for development. All the money that is supposed to be used for development, all the resources supposed to be used for development is being used to play games at the devolution sector. And that's why we are saying, during the last devolution conference, many challenges were cited as to the reason why we have not yet realized devolution as a country. And that is why, actually, we are ending up in corruption, devolving corruption. I want to ask myself, because governors has the money to be able to implement developmental projects at the county level, what have they done? If today, my dear, we are to bring them to task and do a scorecard for governors, each governor, what would you tell us that you have done? So we must reduce on politics at our devolved structures.
I wish I could give Ngaira a few seconds to culminate or finish this conversation. So much talk about, especially a political culture. But now I'm being told that our time has run out. And truly, I'd love to have you back again. But some of the things that you've just picked out is that we need to be careful with the type of leaders that we elect. That was Insight today, and I've been your host, Tracy Ocheng. Have a good night.